So we've already talked about a little bit about the elimination method. So what if there are no common coefficients? The examples we've been using all have had a common coefficient, so it's very easy to eliminate. Well, if you don't have a common coefficient, you can still use this method. You would just have to multiply one or both equations by some number to create matching or opposite coefficients. So it doesn't matter if they match or if they're opposite, whatever you prefer. I'm going to go with whatever I feel like at the time. Typically, I like to try and make them opposite, but if it's easier to make them the same, it's up to you. So let's look at some examples. The first example, we have x plus 3y equals 6, 2x minus 7y equals negative 1. So very clearly, we do not have common coefficients here. Now, you want to look for the easiest way to make common coefficients. So it may not be the best to pick the 3 and the 7, the y's, because that's a little more difficult to create a common coefficient with. Now, it can be done. It'll just make you have bigger numbers. So you want to try and pick the one that's the easiest. In this case, I would focus on the x terms. We have an x here and a 2x here, and it's very easy to get 1x to 2x. To get 1x to 2x, you just need to multiply by 2. So for this, you're not just multiplying one part of it by 2, you're multiplying the whole thing by 2. So I'm multiplying all of the things here times 2. This is where that distributive property is super important because you need to make sure you're passing that 2 out to every part of this. So now I have 2x plus 3 times 2, 6y, equals 6 times 2, which is 12. So that is going to be my new equation I'm using for my elimination method. And then I'm just going to bring over this one, 2x minus 7y equals negative 1. Now here, even though my 2's are written differently, they're still the same number. So I have the same matching coefficient right here. So when they're the same, that means we subtract. Remember the s is same sign, we subtract. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract all of this in order to eliminate. So 2 minus 2 I know is 0, so that's gone. 6 minus a negative 7, remember that's like 6 plus 7. 6 plus 7 is 13y. And then 12 minus a negative 1 is the same thing as 12 plus 1. So 12 plus 1 is 13. Divide both sides by 13, and my y is equal to 1. So now what I want to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to plug it back in to the original expression. So I'm going to have my x plus 3 times 1 sorry, I ran out of board space, equals 6. Okay, so I have x plus 3. Okay, and that is equal to 6. Subtract 3 from both sides, and your x is 3. So my ordered pair here is 3, 1. Simple enough, right? So same idea for number 2. We're going to go ahead and we need to find our common coefficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out, 9 and 2, I could use those ones, but I don't really know something that's going to be super easy here other than multiplying by, I don't even know, not at this point. So at this point, 3y and y, that's going to be the easiest one. I can multiply just the bottom one times 3. So multiply the whole thing by 3. So now this is going to be 2 times 3 is 6x, plus 1 times 3 is 3y, and then 5 times 3 is 15. So I'm going to rewrite both of my equations. And I have same coefficient here, same sign. So I'm going to do the subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 9 minus 6. That gets me 3x. 3 minus 3 is 0. 12 minus 15 is a negative 3. Divide both sides by 3, and you get negative 1. So now I'm going to take that negative 1, and I'm going to plug it back in to my original expression here. Okay, so 2 times negative 1 plus y equals 5. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 plus y equals 5. To get rid of this, I have to add 2 to both sides. To cancel that out, that's 0. So y equals 7. So my ordered pair is negative 1, 7. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and try one more, and then you're going to try some on your own. So again, we have 3x, 5x. Nothing easily is going to multiply together to get this. So I can see here I have a negative y and a positive 4y. So I know that I can go ahead and multiply the top by 4 in order to get an opposite coefficient this time. So I'm going to multiply this whole thing times 4. So 3 times 4 is 12x. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4y. And 14 times 4 is 56. And then I'm going to copy this other one down. Okay, and then this time I have opposite signs for my same coefficient. My opposite signs means I'm going to add. So I'm going to add all of this. So 12 plus 5 is 17x. I know negative 4 plus 4 is 0. And 56 plus 12 gets me 68. And I'm going to divide both sides by 17 to get my x. And x is going to equal 4. So now I can take my x equals 4, plug it into my original right here. So 3 times 4 minus y equals 14. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve this. 12 minus y equals 14. Subtract 12 from both sides. I get my negative y equals 2. And then I have to divide by negative 1 to get y equals to negative 2. So I've got this, and I've got this. So my ordered pair is 4, negative 2. You're going to try the next 4. So go ahead and try number 4. For number 4, you should have gotten negative 8, 5. And please check your work with the work shown here. Try 5. For number 5, you should have had negative 4, negative 3. Check your work with the work shown here. Try 6. For 6, you should have had 0 equals 0, which we all know that if it's the same number on both sides, it should be infinite solutions because those are going to be the same line. You can tell because it's 6x plus 2y equals 4. 6x plus 2y equals 4. Those are the same equation. So obviously, this is going to be infinite solutions. Try 7. 7, you should have had negative 2, 3. All right, so number 8 is a little different. As you can see, I've got 3x and 5x, and I've got 3y and 4y. I can't multiply just one of those expressions or equations to get the other equation. So in this case, instead of just multiplying one equation, I have to multiply both equations. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to multiply by the other coefficient. So this top one, doesn't matter what we pick. I'm going to pick y to focus on. You can use x if you want. So if I'm going to look at the y's, in order to get these to have a common factor is what you're looking for, or the least common multiple. You want the least common multiple. So for the least common multiple for these, you need to go ahead and multiply them by each other in this case, because there is no least common multiple that's closer than 12. So 3 times 4 is going to get me 12, and 4 times 3 is going to get me 12. So for the top equation, I'm going to multiply the whole thing times 4. I'm multiplying it by the other coefficient. And for the bottom one, I'm multiplying the whole thing times 3 to make sure that I'm getting 12y for each of these. So for the top one, I'm doing 3 times 4, and that's going to get me 12x. 3 times 4 is going to get me 12y. And 9 times 4 is going to get me 36. Now for the bottom one, I'm doing 5 times 3 to get 15x, 4 times 3 to get 12y, and 10 times 3 to get 30. And since I have the same coefficient and the same sign means I'm going to subtract. So I need to subtract these. 12 minus 15 is negative 3x. 12 minus 12 is 0. And 36 minus 30 is 6. Divide both sides by negative 3, and I get x equals negative 2. So I can go ahead and plug this in. Doesn't matter which equation you choose. You pick whatever one's easiest for you. I'm going to use the top one. So I'm going to plug negative 2 in for x in the top one. And then I'm going to solve. And when you solve, you should get y equals 5. So that means my ordered pair here is negative 2, 5. There we go. Try 9. For number 9, it's the same process. It doesn't matter if you use the y's or the x's. For this example, we'll use the x's. So if you use the y terms, your work's going to be a little differently, but you should still get the same answer. If you use the x's, like the sample does, then your work should match what's here. Okay, so if you're using the x's, you're multiplying the top by 7 and the bottom by 5 to eliminate the x's to get 35. When you simplify it, you should end up with 7, negative 5 as your answer. So we're going to try number 10. And number 10 is similar. So let's go ahead and just look at number 10. So for number 10, you have to go ahead and solve this by having this equal sign. We need to get rid of this. We need it to be in standard form. So for standard form, remember that's ax plus by equals c. So I need to get both of these equations in standard form. This equal sign makes it not in standard form. So I want to solve this to get it like this. So in order to do that, remember, we need to solve this like it's a literal equation. And we need to go ahead and get our y over there with our x. So I'm going to subtract 4y from both sides and get 2x minus 4y equals 18. So now I can use this one to help me figure out what I'm going to multiply by, because I have a negative 5 and a 2, a negative 6 and a negative 4, and I can't easily multiply just one of those. So what I want to do is I need to figure out the least common multiple that I need to use here. In this case, if I'm multiplying, I want to get a 12 or a negative 12 here. So negative 12, 6 goes into 12, 4 goes into 12, so I know that'll work. So negative 6 times, we'll use a positive 2, will get me negative 12. And then a negative 4 times a positive 3 will also get me negative 12. So I can go ahead and I can multiply those out. So I'm going to start with the one that was originally on the top. So 2 times 3, that's 6x. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12y. And 18 times 3 is going to be 54. And then for the second one, negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Negative 6 times negative 6 times 2, is negative 12. And 3 times 2 is 6. So now I have the same sign again in front of my similar coefficients. So I need to subtract because it is the same sign. So 6 minus negative 10, remember that's 6 plus 10. It's going to be 16x. Negative 12 minus a negative 12 is 0. And 54 minus 6 is going to get me 48. I can divide both sides by 16 and get x equals 3. And again, you want to plug this into one of the originals. So it doesn't matter which one. I'm going to use the top one. So I'm going to use 2 times 3 equals 4y plus 18. 2 times 3 is 6. 4y plus 18. Subtract 18 from both sides. Okay, so 6 minus 18 gets me a negative 12. Oops, sorry. divide both sides by 4, and I get -3. So my solution here is 3, -3. All right, so now that you've seen something like that, go ahead and try number 11. It's going to involve some rearranging first before you can go ahead and simplify, before you can go ahead and multiply. For number 11, you should have had no solution, because whenever you go to simplify it, you do end up with the same thing on the left, but on the right, the numbers are going to be different. 0 does not equal 6, so that means no solution. Try 12. In 12, you should have had 1, -4 as your solution. Please check your work with this. If you have any questions, please see me.